Greetings, Stalkers, and welcome back to the Grymm Mansion. I am your prophet of the flesh, Weird Aldrich, and I have the displeasure of being joined this night by my most despised friend,
the prophet of the circuit, Abominathan. My displeasure to have you here. I mess that as
What
well.
happened to you having the same catchphrase every night?
I mean, when you start something cool, I'm not gonna just ignore it and do my regular thing. It's All
right.
I also like some variation once in a while. So
This night,
speaking of not of having variation and actually not having a lot of variation, we are doing another. We're on a roll, because last episode we did Candyman, which is based on a Clive Barker novel. This episode we're doing another Clive Barker adaptation. Isn't that correct?
you know me, and you know that I don't believe in coincidences, so it must have been fate that brought us here tonight again to speak of Hellraiser. The candles have been lit, the circles have been closed, and the words of power have been recited. Let us begin tonight's gathering. As you were so eagerly going to say?
This was a series that I wasn't very familiar with before you showed it to me, and I kind of love it. I mean, spoilers on the rating, but it's a weird one. This is different from what I expected, really.
It is definitely weird, yes. You probably went in with the mentality that it was going to be a slasher because, well, it is contemporary with other infamous slashers.
Yes.
Anything to say about that?
Well, it's yeah, calling it slasher would be a huge stretch.
It is much different.
However, what is not a huge stretch, what is another huge stretch, is the stretch that the victims of the Cenobites get when they.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah, let us not put our dead oxen before the chariot. So, the movie opens with a question. What's your pleasure? There is an exchange that is being performed in a market. And we see this is clearly not. I want you stalkers to imagine a sort of open. Well, they're at a sort of cafe, but there's a lot of movement in the streets. It's a sort of open area. There's no doors. It looks, let's say, Northern African. I think it looks very Arabesque, so to say.
Definitely some kind of Arab world style thing.
Exactly. And we see a foreigner who is just dropping stacks of money on a table to apparently purchase a very ornate box.
The dude is almost like saying, "Hey, no, it's like that. Well, you got it. It's yours."
Yeah, take it.
Almost like insisting, like, "Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. You don't have to." And he says the phrase, "It was always yours." I think he does. I think he says.
Yeah, it always was. Yes, as just after the man gets up and leaves, so he doesn't hear this, but we, as the camera stays, we hear it. Later, we see this same man who is, well, he's disposed in, he's sitting down in the middle of a circle of candles, a very familiar sight, to be fair. He's seemingly trying to open this box, and the way that he's doing it is, it's very
Sexual.
It's very sexual, almost as
It's
he's
he's
trying to
he's,
pleasure the box.
he's the box in a way.
Yeah, with his fingers, yes. He's finger a box. Well, not that kind of box.
And and what is interesting is that he is sitting in a not a circle of candles, but a square of candles, which I thought was, I it immediately jumped to me because it's it's not the usual when we do these kinds of rituals. It's a circle because there's
No, yeah, it's a square. You're correct. Sorry.
yeah
Yeah, yeah.
it's already shows that this is gonna be that kind of movie, that has these weird um, things that jump out at you, literally and figuratively, I guess.
So as the box opens, we just see hooks and chains being
Yep.
thrown at him from the darkness. And he's being pulled apart, like turned to absolute gore before we just see more chains and hooks being dangled from the ceiling. And there's a sort of obelisk,
Mhm.
and with bits of his body parts and stuff. And there's a couple of figures that show up in very tight BDSM leather, like
It is a
spikes.
I enjoy the aesthetic very much.
Yeah,
They have a
right.
fashion sense, if we can call it that. Definitely.
All of them are horrifically mutilated. Um, one of them has a. I want. This is very sexual, but the only seemingly female one has her throat ripped open, and the folds of her throat mimic the shape of a. Um,
Notice that actually.
I think her name is Angel Face.
But is that what she calls herself, or is that what other people call her?
Nobody calls them anything.
Okay, okay. They don't. It's like pronouns. None. Don't refer to me.
Yeah, don't refer to us. We, for all intents and purposes, we do not exist. Um, all right. So yeah, they show up and they are assembling this man's face. It's all torn apart essentially, but the face is still moving. And
Mhm.
as soon as they do, one of them picks up the box, closes it, and everything disappears, leaving no trace whatsoever.
Yep. Right. So in a complete change of scene, we have what seems like a recently. I don't know if it's necessarily recently wed, but it's a still. You can tell it's a not a very old couple that is purchased or decided to move into this
Yeah, move in.
yeah into move into this old house that this homestead that the man had. So this I believe they have a short exchange about how it was his either his mother's old home or something. I
Yeah,
think that's
it's it
what it
used
was.
to live here. Yeah, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
family house.
Well, yeah. So it's interesting that we immediately see the kind of dissatisfaction with these two between these two because the woman is not very pleased with this whole place. She's
She's bitter about having to move away from the city into
Mhm.
the suburbs or whatever this place is.
Yeah. Um and there's all these weird apparatus, like there's these statues and all these weird things, weird objects. It's artifacts, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, pardon to the interruption, but we do find out in this same scene that the person from the previous scene was Frank, Larry's
Hmm.
brother. So he used to live here. This is where it all happened.
Yeah, so the right,
You were
so
saying about the statues.
yes, so yeah, there's all these artifacts that they are these normies are not pleased to seeing because they are quite creepy, and
Shocking.
so
Yes, most of them sexual too. Oh no, you
mhm.
mean there's also all the religious iconography. There's
Yeah,
saints
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Jesus everywhere.
There's a bunch of these things, and I guess they were the things that either Frank or their mother had for whatever reason. They decide to ditch all that and sell it outside. Literally outside. It's literally just like next to the no, they're just giving it away. I think it's one or the other. Also, we get introduced to their daughter. We could call the stepdaughter of Julie, who's the woman. Kirsty. Sorry,
Kirsty. Yeah.
Kirsty is the daughter of Larry. So we have this interesting kind of family dynamic, which is so Larry is a guy who remarried. So there's always that bit of contention with those situations. Not only that, when Julie goes upstairs and she finds the place in which there's this big room that is completely barren, has no furniture, nothing.
The attic, essentially.
Yes, it has rats and stuff, but it also has this place, which is we recognize it as precisely the place where Frank was when he performed the ritual, and he has a bunch of. I mean, no, it was actually a bed. Sorry, it was a bed where he presumably slept in, and he had pictures of him having sex with other women. Yes, and Julie finds this. She starts having flashbacks when she remembers Frank.
It's me, brother Frank. Aren't you gonna let me in?
These are like the memories of when they were about to marry. So Larry and Julie.
Clearly,
But
it doesn't
Frank.
count.
What?
It doesn't count. They were not married. It doesn't count.
True. Frank doesn't give a.
Clearly.
And that's the thing about this love triangle, if you call it that.
Definitely.
So we have Larry, who is this. You look at this guy, the way he talks, the way he
He's
walks.
the most piece of milk toast.
I would argue, and this might be perhaps I researched too far, or maybe didn't do a good job. I don't know. I don't know if I'm looking too much into this, but you could. I think nowadays people call this small energy, and that's what Larry has.
If that means the same.
Frank, on the other hand, and this is the interesting part, because they're brothers, but they are very different.
They couldn't be further apart.
Right. Frank is the boy of the family. He has what is technically known as the big energy. Julie is torn because, well, even though Larry is what would be considered technically the right man, that's up to her obviously to decide, but he is the most well established, he's got a job, he's more preferable husband, I guess. Clearly her passion lies with Frank. She is obsessed with Frank. There's no denial, and when she sees
I can't argue there.
Those pictures, you can see that there is that angst, that longing for his and this is while they're doing they're moving, so they're having the
mattresses coming in.
Yeah, and there's all these I forgot what the name is. The dude,
the man helping them, handyman.
Yes, the handyman. For a second, I heard Candyman. I was like, wow.
You're obsessed, is what you are.
I am not obsessed with Candyman. Shut up. So, I mean, you could explain this part because it's weird, it's wacky.
So it's Kirsty shows up in the house. They're moving the mattress in, and Julie is doing absolutely all to help. Larry is trying to pivot the mattress into a bedroom and ends up getting his hand ripped apart by a nail that was... The nail was sticking out. It was a rusty nail sticking out of the wall. His hand rips, starts bleeding profusely, and apparently he's very squeamish. As I said, he's milquetoast. He runs to Julie, starts screaming for Julie. He goes up in the room, where she is, where Frank died. And he's just holding out his hand, bleeding all over the floor. I'm gonna pass out. You know how I am. I'm gonna die. Please help. And
Mm.
she's just, oh, stop it now. You're a little silly bitch. Puts like over like some sort of bandage on his hand or some. They have to take him into the emergency room to get stitches. Anyway, that's not the big point because what happens is as they're leaving the room, we see that the pools of blood start getting absorbed into the floorboards through pores, in this case the nails, and are being funneled into a heart that starts beating again.
This scene is the movie went from. I mean, I know we've had that crazy intro in the beginning, but this scene so far is just it goes from 0 to 100. Smoke starts coming out from
Yeah,
beneath the
true.
floorboards. The floorboards start lifting, and I don't even know if figure is the right word. A thing begins to lift itself.
Assemble itself.
Right, and starts developing fingers and toes and
Bones. He's just bones, and
bones and like tendons or something.
yeah, you
Because
start seeing muscle eventually.
yeah,
Yeah.
it has to move itself somehow.
It
It's like
screams an awful blood curdling scream.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of how I look when I
Good
get
morning.
awoken by
Awful
the
morning.
no, a full evening. You mean? Um,
Well, you get aroused in the middle of morning, is what I'm trying
oh
to say.
yes. In the morning, yeah. Do not wake me in the morning, please. Like this is what I would look like when I wake up in the morning. Those thralls, they need to
I
silence
told you
themselves.
we need to board the windows. Anyway,
True.
over at dinner, there's a bunch of adults that are been invited, and Kirsty is there, and she's eating it off with like a younger guy who's there. And while this is happening, Julia excuses herself and wants to leave. I guess she must be bored from all of this. And in the middle of going upstairs, she hears the boards creak and she decides to check it out. So she goes up to the room, and I think at first she finds nothing, but then as she turns around, there's a hand that grabs her in her leg. She tries to run away, but as soon as that thing says, Julia,
It's me.
it's Frank,
It's Frank.
Frankie. I don't know how he says it, but
It's something
Julia
like that.
immediately realizes and believes. Like, she's like in shock, obviously. How did this happen? Like, it's, uh, Frankie's all like, the blood, my brother's blood brought me back. Now I need more. Please, you must help me. Don't leave me like this. And Julia's, okay, I'll help you.
Honestly, when you're that was great by the way the representation, but it's so funny when you put it that way. It's like the dude is begging like for more blood, and she's like, okay,
Yeah,
I'll
like, I want you, don't think how ridiculous it is. If you go with it and think about the, this man must have a golden
obviously that's why I said like what I would classify my analysis of the size was because I from my perspective she's a size what's known as a size queen, and clearly Frank just has the dick she's looking for.
I don't know what any of this means.
Okay,
Um,
it's very technical stuff. But
I don't want to. My head hurts already. All right, let's focus. Let's focus,
okay.
please. She's willing to kill for him, obviously,
Mhm.
and she promises to help. Anyway, Kirsty is heading back home with the boy.
The boy.
Let's just say that. What was his name?
I don't remember actually.
Apparently,
I'm
he's the only person I don't have here on my notes, but I'm sure he's here. He must show up somewhere because I know she says his name. Steve.
Steve. There you go.
His name is Steve, right? I think it's Steve. I think it's showing up here.
Let's say that it is. Let's go with Steve. Anyway, continuing. They're coming
Yeah,
back.
they end up going home. Let's just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Cotton, Larry, is mumbling in his sleep, and Julia is reminiscing about her past with Frankie, and she remembers saying in a flashback she would do anything for Frankie. At this point, let the games begin, right? Kirsty has a dream about her dad. Is sort of a prophetic dream in a way.
Oh yeah, because there's blood
Yeah.
everywhere. Like he's laying in a, I think it's a hospital bed or something, or it's just a regular bed, and he just starts bleeding profusely, and yeah, she calls to just
To make sure
just
everything's
startle,
okay.
like
Yeah.
yeah, because there's, as you said in the beginning of the episode, there's no such thing as a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you're watching this fit, no, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Julia, in the meantime, starts bringing in strangers into her house under the pretext of sleeping with them, I guess, in order to take them to Frank so he can feed. Also, a very familiar feeling, but we like to do it ourselves, I guess. Sometimes the chase is better than the catch.
No, I do think that this relationship don't interpret this wrong, but the relationship that Frank and Larry, not Larry, what the fuck, God, what is happening?
Larry is his brother.
Julie.
Julia.
The relationship that Frank and Julie have is kind of similar in this scene, at least, kind of similar to the relationship that you and I have, because you also, bring victims for us to deal with. So
Well, but you do too.
it's different. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it just reminded me a little bit. But regardless,
We are not having sex, I promise you.
we are not.
Anyway, she almost changes her mind, but soon brings him over to. Why did I write this? He brings him over to Frankie's for a wiener?
Wait, what?
I write the best jokes, I just don't know how to deliver them.
And I thought I was the one that was doing the jokes.
Well,
Apparently
he's
not.
trying to excuse himself to just take a piss, because you don't buy beer, apparently, you just rent it. She picks up a hammer and hammers in the point that he ain't leaving the room. What the
I don't know what's funnier, if it's the fact that you wrote those jokes and don't remember, or just you reading those jokes and
I
not
was
getting
drunk,
them.
okay? I should be drinking right now. That's the problem. We're out of wine and these trolls are lazy as
Right. Anyway.
So she leaves Frankie to his business, and she's trying to clean up. When Julia comes back to clean up the mess that Frankie left, he's essentially feeding like out of blood bags. He's sucking the innards and leaving the plastic out.
Oh yeah.
He's not feeling fully himself yet. He's got a little bit of feeling, and he's smoking a cigarette so he can taste it. But he clearly needs a few more drinks to hydrate properly.
Well, he probably needs a skin too, because at this
Yeah.
point he's still just muscle and tendon, and yeah, he needs
Very rough.
Does he have? No, he doesn't have clothes yet.
This guy and Buffalo Bill should be friends.
Yeah.
As Frankie's trying to cop a feel out of Julie's breast, Larry comes back, and she hurriedly hides the body in a room that he's never going to see, and she dodges him around the house to try and lock herself in the bathroom, saying that she's feeling sick and asking for brandy.
Oh yeah, because Julie is, this was her first kill, and you never forget your first time. Yeah. And so she's feeling the, we've all been through this. We know how it is. Like when the humanity is still fresh, it's still innocent, it's untouched. When we have our first kill,
Yeah.
It begins, the corrupting force is too much to bear.
To be young again.
Oh yes, we were so innocent back in the 19th century.
Poor Mayor.
Oh yeah, really did him dirty. Anyway, so she's expertly handling this because dealing with that initial shock, but handling it like a boss. And this is a thing she's gonna do several times throughout this movie.
Yeah,
Just and she's learning. She's getting better at it.
she
Like,
will. And she's
yeah.
just a diamond in the rough, and Frankie is clearly a good picker. He's got a good finger for it. Had a good finger for it. Will have had a good whatever.
He had and he will have
Yeah,
once he gets a new finger.
past and future, but not the present.
Yes.
Next scene, Kirsty is working at her animal shop stuff and sees a hobo that she had met in the, or that had seen her in the previous
Ah,
night.
that's right. That was the scene that for some reason, I didn't have that in my notes, but I remember there was something that we were missing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Christy was out with Steve, they saw this like weird, like homeless man, like all mischieved up with a beard and stuff. He was looking at them and just, didn't think much of it. It's just weird, just a
He's
guy.
got like a very disgruntled look, but at the same time, he had the most beautiful eyes. Did he not? Weren't they blue or something? I think he had like
uh,
some very light eyes. I remember that much.
um, Yeah, I forgot about your eye collection. Yeah, so Kirsty works at this animal shop, with all these rabbits and yeah, I don't remember, but there's a bunch of animals here. The same guy is there. He shows up in the shop and
He's got a
or
peculiar diet.
right, like he starts eating the like he
A handful of locust and just numbs it up right in front of Kirsty.
this guy that they saw that was spying on them is there. He just has no problem in putting his hand through the lid of a box of one of those terrariums full of locusts and just taking a handful and eating them in front of Kirsty. To her shock, I mean, first of all, that's shoplifting. I don't think you're as a mortal, you're gonna get in trouble for that. But he doesn't seem like it's a problem for him.
Oh,
But
it's a
she kind of
nutritious meal, the food of the future. Eat the
true,
bugs.
true. But she's not very happy, and she kind of shoos him off. But yeah, there's this weird encounter, and it doesn't lead up to much. It's just
Yeah, Steve is there. He asks her out.
mm,
Keep this person in mind, okay? Keep
yeah.
this
It's clearly
beautifully
Chekhov's guy.
eyed, exactly, the Chekhov's hobo.
Maybe his name is Chekhov.
Yeah, all
Ooh,
right, let's call him Chekhov. That's it. From now on, he's
Chekhov. There we
Chekhov.
go. There we go.
Julia brings home yet another man. Frankie feeds yet again. And by this point, Julia is definitely starting to enjoy this.
Hmm.
But at the same time, she wants an explanation from Frankie. And Frankie tells her about the box. And we are taken back to that night where
Hmm.
he got torn apart. He's
Yeah.
very, very keen on. You want to say something?
No, I was gonna continue what you were saying, which is his journey to the Cenobite realm. Like that's the whole thing of the box, is that it takes you to explore the limits of pain and pleasure.
And where those
Um,
two start to blend.
yeah, it's the
But it's
it's the
taken
the
to the
limits
absolute
of,
extreme.
yeah, it's the limits of human experience, and it was
Beyond.
just too much for Frank to resist. He had to get it.
Yeah,
He
because
had
there is a. I'll mention it now because I think you bringing that up is important. There's a flashback. I don't know if we go to it later or not, but I'm not sure if I noted it or not. But I want to mention it. Is that a flashback to when Julia and Frankie were together right
Mhm.
after they f***ed. And Frankie definitely is not a guy that likes to cuddle.
Mhm.
It's like he is banging his fists on the bed like it's not enough. It's never enough. This guy just wants more and more. He wants it all, and he wants it now.
And that's the reason why he went to the box, or I guess the box went to him.
Yeah.
But however, he seems to have he didn't expect what he got because the Cenobites wanted him. They ripped his skin apart left his the rest of his body that wasn't his skin apparently under the floorboards of that house to just decompose
Yeah, that's
forever.
what I never actually understood. If he just reformed from the blood because his heart was still there, if it was like a telltale heart kind of thing, that very Edgar
From
Allan Poe.
from what I can understand, or at least it is very weird, but
It doesn't have to make sense anyway.
right. But I think it was like this. It was his skin. So the Cenobites, they wanted his skin. I don't know why. I guess you could never know because it's the Cenobites. You know they are. We'll talk about them later, but they ripped his skin apart and took his skin, took his face, and all that stuff,
They
and
took
left the
everything.
rest.
Oh, but
Right.
all right.
No, no. I think they left like the skeleton and the heart, for example, back in our realm. I don't know why. I don't know why would they would leave it under the floorboards, but I guess maybe that's the thing they do. They just like bury it. Bury
I
it.
think it's because mostly of technical limitation,
Maybe.
because they couldn't have CGI at the time, and the way to do practical effects, the easiest way was to have someone in a suit,
Maybe.
because his face is torn apart, is in the floorboards, even his eyes are there, right?
No, I think
And
yeah.
his
I
eyes are
think
back on his face once you see him reformed.
true. I don't know. Maybe we're overthinking this.
Yeah,
Maybe we shouldn't.
definitely.
We have to leave a bit to the
Imagination.
yeah. But
And then, like
what is
Frankie should have done.
important? True. But what is important is that Frank knows he fucked up. Essentially, he went too far, and the Cenobites weren't gonna let him have it. You know that they wanted his skin and they wanted him they wanted his soul. But you know Frank, the kind of person that he is, he's well, he wants freedom as well. He doesn't want to be in eternal torture in the Cenobites realm anymore.
Well, all you
And
gotta do
so
is change your point of view, sweetie.
true. Like he truly he didn't go far enough.
That's what I would
But
say.
yeah. But so Frank essentially is cheating the Cenobites' rules because he's trying to escape their grasp, well, by reforming in this plane again.
Every kill, every drop of blood brings him this much closer.
It is quite interesting that one, this is just a nitpick, but it's like again, it's these tiny things that when you start thinking about them, it's like that's kind of weird. One tiny slit in the back of Larry's hand was enough to give him back his bones and his arteries, but then he needs three fully grown, actually four, spoiler alert, fully grown men of blood to get like his flesh back. I
Right.
mean,
It's probably because it was his brother's blood. It was his blood, essentially.
I
Obviously, in
didn't
a
think
more
of that.
esoteric kind of way, but they're of the
I didn't
same
think of that.
blood.
That makes sense. That makes sense,
Yeah, it
actually.
was more powerful.
Wow. Damn, you are good at interpreting things.
Yeah, well, depends on the things we're talking about. But I do like this one.
Mm-hmm. It seems like your kind of
At
story,
home,
indeed.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that
Uh,
this movie inspired me, but honestly, it was probably the other way around.
yes, you are much older than this movie. So,
Yeah.
um, how old are you again? I forgot.
Well,
It's been
let's not
it's
get
been
into
too
it.
many centuries. Okay, it's too many centuries. I just you lose count. Anyway,
Never ask an immortal his age.
essentially, Frank explains to Julie that his plan is for Julie to bring him back. So, give him enough blood to reform in this world, and so they can both leave this place and go live a life somewhere else. I don't know. It seems that Julie is fully on board at this point. She's like, yeah, let's do that. And so they create this entire this scheme of she fetches men. For some reason, she has a lot more ease. She has a lot of ease. I guess it's the whole the riz that kids talk about these days. But it's like I'm impressed because she's not that young, really. She has quite ease bringing and fetching these men for the sacrifice. And at this point, Larry's getting worried because because we have this entire scene in which Frank is.
Yeah. Is it the one where Larry shows up upstairs and Frank tries to kill him and Julie's begging not to? Is that the one?
Yeah, because there's a whole thing that basically Frank is asking her to, like, not necessarily, but he's saying like,
He's here. Let's just do this.
and Julia's not on board with that yet because it's
She
too
clearly
early,
still has feelings for him. Both of
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
still attached
yeah,
somehow to
because
Larry.
yeah, and probably still has a bit of humanity left,
Just a
and
tiny sliver at this point.
just a tiny sliver.
But yeah,
But
she
it's gotta go too.
she gets Larry out of that room. They try to have sex, but Frankie's there playing the voyeur. He's gonna stab his brother, and Julia's just screaming, "No, no, no!" There's a huge fight because Larry is like, "Well, 1 minute you tell me yes, yes, yes. The other is no, no, no. There's no winning with you, woman."
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you poor Larry, so clueless.
And so he decides later, on some other day, I don't know, to confide this with his daughter over dinner and saying that Julia never leaves the house and she probably could use a friend, and asks Kirsty to stop by whenever she has time. And so Kirsty does.
And Kirsty discovers that Julia is bringing men
into the house
with her. Yeah.
She doesn't know to what purpose yet. She obviously thinks that she's them. Like, who wouldn't, right?
Right.
She decides to follow inside, marking the beginning of her many, many years of torment down the line. This was essentially her point of no return. What's it called? A Rubicon. This was Kirsty's Rubicon. Walking upstairs, she finds Uncle Frank just in the middle of emptying his ketchup packet. Fuck with the ketchup packet.
Why not? I mean, hey, I like ketchup. Right, so this is when it starts hitting the fan, as the saying goes. Because Kirsty is beginning to realize or beginning to see the truth that Frank is here, or
Uncle Frank.
Part of him is here, I guess. Right, so they have a little fight.
You want me to? Okay.
No, actually, you probably remember this part better than I do.
So she's backing up, afraid, and is pinned by Frankie, who tries to feed on her. And as she touches the box, he immediately starts freaking out. He's like, "Give me the box. Yes, give me the box. I'm going to tell you once. Give me the box." You want it? Then have it. She just throws it out the window. She runs. She makes a run for it because the guy's like, "No!" And as she runs out of the house, she picks up the box on her way out and essentially walks until she passes out. She wakes up in a hospital bed, trying to leave, obviously. There's a doctor's asking them some weird ass questions about the box and where she found it, what she do. Just leave to let her play with it, I guess. Which she eventually starts to touch in the same familiar ways as her uncle touched. This is sounding very weird. But the box does react to her and opens a portal in the wall, which leads to a dark corridor that has nothing to do with the rest of the architecture of the hospital. Yeah. She hears babies cry. She's like dank, dark crypts into the unknown abyss, whatever. And she finds a creature that's monitoring the halls. It's, I don't know how to describe it. It's like walking on two legs and has the face between its legs and the tail like perked up like a scorpion above its head.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. Luckily, she finds her way back before this creature can grab her and kill her. And as she's trying to close the box, he inadvertently summons the Cenobites, who want to show her such vistas, such sights that they have to show them.
Oh yeah.
And they're... Go on.
Yeah, so it's I think now is a good time. I mean, you've already described part of the Cenobites, but yeah, they're these.
We get a better look, right?
We have a good look now. So we could say the leader is this this pale figure that, as you said, is wearing these kind of BDSM leather clothes. Calling them clothes might be a bit of a stretch. I don't know. this fashion. But the peculiarity about this figure is that he has lots and lots of like nails just like sticking out of these kind of like you've probably all seen it at this point, but if I were to describe it, it's
Be very
at
careful with your
regular
next words.
at regular intervals on his skin, on the skin of his head, because he has
Actually, they go all the
no.
way to his brain.
Okay, there we go. Some info I could not gather from just looking at it, but yeah, it's just a bunch of nails, just everywhere.
Yeah. As we previously described, there's the one with the vagina on her throat. We have a horribly scarred one, which only discerning feature are its teeth, which are constantly chattering. And
Yep.
finally, there's a big lump of flesh whose goggles have been on his face for so long that skin has started to heal on top of them, apparently. It's what it seems like. The glasses are part of his face. Its face.
So the leader, I believe he's called Hell Priest or
Yes,
something.
let's call him Hell Priest.
Yeah,
Never
he
those
explains.
that word.
Oh yeah, then that's the forbidden word. He explains that explorers of the limits of human experience, angels to some, demons to others. I believe I'm
Yeah,
quoting correctly. And yeah, and that they have such sights to show Kirsty, but Kirsty's like, oh right, because they said, we came because you opened the box. But
Very
Kirsty's like,
sexual, see?
true. But Kirsty's like, no, it was a mistake. Please, just don't. And then
He name
to
drops
try and
Frank.
to try and bargain with them, she says that she knows where Frank is. Frank is the one that had that she took the box from. And right, and now the Cenobites are interested because so Frank is the one that just slipped through our
At first,
fingers.
they don't believe her. At first, they
Mhm.
don't believe her. But yeah, they eventually agree. Because if it's true, they will want to hear it from his own mouth.
Right, if it's not true, then
They'll take Kirsty.
they'll tear her soul apart. As
Exactly. Well put.
so yeah, so we enter what you could consider the third act of this movie.
Yeah, things are about to get
And-
very spicy.
Oh boy.
So, Julia and Frankie start to worry that Kirsty will tell Larry about what just happened, and they arrange to kill him. Steve is looking for Kirsty, but she's no longer at the hospital because she knows about her dad. So she comes home to warn her dad, and Julia opens the door. She's like, "Please let me in." At first, she's very reluctant, but eventually she does pass, and Kirsty rushes to dad and hugs him. There's something weird about his face that she just can't really put on it. There's a halo of blood around the man's face. Let's just say it,
Right. There's he's bleeding somewhat.
or leaking something. She's so
But
excited
we
to see
get
dad.
right. She tells him that Frank is upstairs and he's trying to kill him, and he replies or exposes in some way that yes, I know, and I've already took care of that. It was ugly. It was really ugly. You didn't want to see it, but he is up there. Frank is in fact up there. If you want to go take a look.
We gotta put him down.
Yeah.
He was a
So
dog, and he had to be put down.
So this is, in a way, it's the movie trying to fool us, or giving us a false explanation as to why he has blood on his face or on his.
Why the hell he's
somewhere.
melting?
I guess. Yeah, Kirsty does go upstairs and finds a
Frankie's body,
mutilated corpse.
air quotes.
Yeah, a mutilated corpse on the floor, with no skin, by the way. Which, well, yeah, we remember Frankie had no skin. Frankie had no skin. Yes. Why does that sound like a title to a children's book?
What?
Definitely not. Frankie had no skin. Sounds like a title, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe they should. Maybe they should.
We should write a book like that. Children's
Nice.
book for
Yes.
good stalker children.
Mm-hmm. I second that idea.
Anyway, the Cenobites show up and tell her that the man upstairs isn't Frankie. That's not the man she's looking for.
Mhm.
That they're looking for. And she only realizes what's really going on when Larry drops the line, "Come to daddy," which is something that Frankie used to say.
and everything starts to
fall
click
fall
in her
apart
mind.
quite literally as she
And this,
claws his face. Go on. You want to say something?
yeah, at this point we already knew, and I really like I really like when movies do this. Kirsty being sort of, I guess, the main character in a way. It's not, but I mean, she at this point she is the POV that we are following. She's the last character to find out that Frank has murdered her dad and is now wearing his skin on top of his flesh.
Yeah, she's obviously shocked. And there's a little scuffle between the three of them as Julia grabs Kirsty and Frankie stabs Julia while Kirsty dodges the blade. And he essentially
Oh
just
yeah.
says like nothing personal and feeds on her. Kirsty gets to run upstairs and obviously afraid of the Cenobites that are in the room where dad is. She chooses the room where Julia has been hiding Frank's bodies. She's obviously trying not to make any noise so he doesn't know where she is, but that is not really happening because there's a body that drops, maggots all over, and she makes a racket. Regardless, she ends up in the other room, ambushed by Frankie. Is so completely assured of his victory. He says his name out loud and basically confirms his identity.
And once again, we see the very unfortunate fate that happens to those who let their egos speak louder than their senses. The hubris that the villain, yeah, is so assured of their victory that they don't realize, oh wait, I can still up, and that's exactly what happens. Cenobites come, and when Frank realizes that they are here and they're going to take him again, well, he lashes out. He tries to kill Kirsty, but the Cenobites stop him. They throw out these chains with hooks on them, and they grab him.
They
And
essentially tear the
Kirsty,
man from asshole to appetite.
yeah, yeah. He does say one thing.
Oh yes, his final words are so delicious.
Jesus wept. Yeah, he gets his skin torn apart once again.
The Cenobites are dirty though. They don't want to leave without Kirsty.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's a waste. They right.
Yeah, no
It's
tears. What a waste of good suffering.
yeah. So they're trying to convince her to convince. I mean, convince is a strong word. They try to take her, and but she grabs the box and she starts trying to close it. So undoing the puzzle in a way.
The house
And
starts catching on fire for some reason. I don't exactly remember what. It's not on my notes either.
I think it's just for drama.
Yeah. Anyway, the Steve comes in trying to get her out of this collapsing house, but he almost ends up getting killed by the butterball belly. Yeah, yeah.
So as Kirsty is trying to undo the box, I guess each level that she undoes, a different Cenobite gets banished back to his to the realm they came from, I guess.
Only for more climax, for more drama too. But yeah, the final piece comes when she opens the door to the house, or to outside actually, and it does not open to outside. It brings back that monster that she saw in those
Oh
hallways.
yes.
She's struggling to close the box once more. She sends him home in a flash. The house burns down. Everything goes with it. And Kirsty decides that she wants to get rid of this box permanently. And so Steve and her go to a landfill, I think, where some fires are happening. And he just says goodbye, throws it in the fire. When
However, yeah.
Chekhov
Before
comes back.
Yeah, Chekhov, our good friend Chekhov, comes up to the this fire pit very casually, reaches out and grabs the box.
Catches on fire, skin peels off, revealing a demon that flies away with the box. Whereas Kirsty and Steve are just unbelievably looking at the scene.
Yeah.
And curiously, even though the MacGuffin, not really the MacGuffin of the movie, but the central piece of the movie is a box, the movie closes like a circle as we come back to the beginning, to that same table with that same salesman asking a different foreigner, "What's your pleasure?"
Okay. like we've talked about a couple of things already.
Yeah, we touched on some things.
I'm I'm gonna start by saying that this, like as you said before, this movie is very different from the kind of horror movies that you had at the time. And it's interesting that is the premise of the movie is so simple, yet it's so insane at the same time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is based on
The Hellbound
a
Heart.
novel.
Yeah.
Yes, Hellbound Heart
I'm not sure if
by
it's a
Clive
novel or a
Barker.
novella. I think it's a novella. I don't think it's that big.
I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, it's smaller,
Uh,
just size.
okay, so it's a
Hmm.
small. Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. You asked me when we before we watched. You asked me to guess whose heart was hellbound.
Hmm.
Well, I would say it's Julie's. Right?
Oh, all
Is
right.
that not what you were
It's
expecting?
an interesting. Yeah, yeah. You could say
You
that.
would say it's Frank's.
Oh, Frank is
It,
obviously,
right,
obviously.
because Frank is literally hellbound because well, he's trying to escape an inescapable force that is kind of a version of hell, if you'd call it that. But I would consider that the hellbound heart is Julie because she is hellbound by Frank.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. It's kind of it's interesting because it's both technically
Oh yeah, but okay, it's open to
different
interpretation.
reasons.
Like you, I wasn't
Mhm.
the most obvious answer is Frank's, but I liked your answer. The I think it's a pretty good adaptation. I can remember the last time I read the book. I really don't remember it, but it spawned like a bunch of movies that unfortunately are not as good as this one. And because as we started saying in this earlier in this episode, it came out as a contemporary to slashers. And without going too much into it, obviously, to make 9 movies out of this premise, you would have to make it about the body count and how the people die. And so, even though this movie uses the Cenobites exceedingly well, because they show up like 3 times in the entire movie, the real villain of the piece is Frankie, obviously.
Yeah.
He's a true monster of this tale.
No, I love the complexity. Again, as I said, it's like the premise is really simple because it's a guy trying to escape hell. But like that's he made a contract and then he's trying to back out of the contract and he has to kill people in order to do that and he ultimately fails. Like that's basically the premise.
Hmm.
But it's so complex in the way that they make this work. You have the Cenobites themselves. It's interesting because they're basically. I mean, they said it's angels to some, demons to others. They're playing by their own rules. I mean,
No, they obey
they're
someone. They obey someone.
okay, but yeah. But what I'm saying is like they have rules
Oh. Hmm.
that they follow, and I would argue that they are not. They're very far from violating any sort of conventions. They're on their territory. It's the pain and pleasure, the extremes of the human feeling experience is their territory. So whenever they activate the box and which creates. By the way, the box. We should talk about the box.
We will.
Well, let me just finish my train of thought. So when people enter, they're like, "Hey, you're in my territory now. I don't want you to leave." Because it's interesting because they're very welcoming in a way. Like obviously not in the way that mortals enjoy. It's not what they think when they picture
Yeah,
somebody
I mean,
being
obviously, you hear of a realm of eternal pleasure. You don't expect it to be hooks and chains everywhere.
true.
I mean, I would, but
Right, but they are pretty polite in the way that they present themselves. I guess it's not the whole like, oh, I'm gonna steal. I'm
professional is
gonna.
the word that you're looking for.
Okay, maybe that's yes, more formal, more professional.
Yeah, they
Yes,
are extremely
it's
professional.
Frank. On the other hand, he is absolutely chaotic. He is a mess of a person, and he doesn't care. He truly is the villain of this movie, and I appreciate that. Like I really enjoy the multifaceted aspect of it. How there's this mortal that is trying to play with forces beyond their comprehension, and it just doesn't
Backfires.
doesn't work well.
Yeah, didn't do his homework properly.
And it's a good cautionary tale.
Yeah,
Don't play.
I don't think there's any deeper meaning to this. It's just it's very face value, and I think that's what I like about it. It doesn't pretend to be this. How do I put it? Doesn't pretend to be this intellectual piece that has like all this deep meaning that you take forever to understand. No, it's a guy who, by the weight of his sins, is punished accordingly to what he did to so many other people. And he wants none of it, obviously, is given a smallest sliver of chance to escape hell, and he takes it by tooth and nail. Obviously, an exceeding manipulator, full of charisma. I identify with Frank so much. It's a shame, really, to see him not be able to fully reform because of those meddling kids. But yeah, it's essentially it. And
I
then
I
the
also relate to that feeling as well.
mhm. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Going back.
In a different way. In a different way.
Whoa, why?
Because like I relate to the more physical aspect of it, of having to rebuild myself
Yeah,
and
yeah, fair enough. I didn't look at it
using
that way.
people.
Hmm.
I would, yeah, you relate to the more, I
Yeah,
guess,
the more carnal aspect of his
the
personality.
personality. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. As I was saying, the I don't want to get into it, but the sequels kind of bastardized that
It's a theme at
image
this point.
of the Cenobites. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's a theme that a lot of sequels of horror movies, unfortunately, they just fall short of the original premise.
Yeah,
Very
agreed.
rare when that doesn't happen. In fact, I can't even think of an example when that doesn't happen. But yeah, it's as you said, it's very straightforward and very. The premise is very. I do like once in a while. I of course I there's a place and a time for everything. But once in a while, I do just enjoy like a horror movie that is simple. It's a simple premise, and just do the best you can with one specific, like basically three or four characters dealing with a very particular situation,
The film could have
and
been
just
set entirely in that house too.
yes, like yeah, right. The movie has like three location. No, how many Like it has
Okay,
like
there's the house.
Mhm.
Then there's that walk by the pier that he does because that's free, just free shooting. Then there's the scene where Steve and Kirsty kiss by the subway, the pet shop, the landfill. Am I missing something? Oh, yeah, right,
uh
the hospital where
the hospital.
she
Yeah.
sees hell, essentially.
Yeah,
Uh,
the hospital, and also I guess you could consider the other dimension could also be a location,
yeah,
I
but
guess.
they're so they have a total of 5 minutes in the entirety of the movie together, put together. All right,
Right.
the movie is
Most of it is just the
entirely in a
house.
house. Yeah, it's just a
Yeah,
house.
yeah, and it's very reminiscent of. And that's the thing. I don't know how good, how close of an adaptation this is to Clive Barker's novella, but this does feel
Since the
very.
movie was directed by the man himself, I want to believe that the things
Oh,
that he did were mostly just polishing from what an adaptation should do.
right. Okay. I
Right.
actually didn't notice it was
Yeah.
directed by himself,
Yeah.
but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, this does feel very reminiscent of, like, it feels very familiar to us because it does remind of that gothic horror, like gothic literature that was so popular back in the 19th century. It does feel very reminiscent of that, and I appreciate that so much. It's refreshing to have that style have a comeback in this era of movies. So yeah.
Oh, this was the 80s, so
Right. I mean, we one decade later we got Candyman, which is also very. It does have that style as well. Although Candyman is a little less so, I guess. Like it feels more modern, the style of writing and the story. But this one does feel very classical.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah. But then, of course, yeah, as you said, probably the sequels just threw that out the window.
Well, yeah, they put the Cenobites more of the like at the centerpieces of it. Obviously, the story still
Mhm.
revolves somewhat around Kirsty. She shows up in some of the other movies, and it's Yeah, she
Yeah,
essentially is
but
fighting them. Like there's
yeah,
yeah.
it's very interesting that in this movie, the Cenobites being sort of the main, the iconic thing that everybody remembers, they're not even characters. Not necessarily. Like they don't even have names, or at least we don't hear their names
Yeah, but they're
in
so
this movie.
visually
So
appealing that you know you've made money.
yes, yes, but they don't really have, how do I explain this? They're more
Agency,
just like a they
characters,
they
personality.
more right, they mostly just are just like a force, like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
representation almost. And I really like that.
I agree 100%.
That they don't really like, the story doesn't really revolve around them. It revolves around the three or four main characters,
Without
essentially.
making this about the sequels, I do just have one correction to make. That these first four movies are the ones that were released on cinema at the time. Uh, they um, they focus a lot on the Cenobites and make it a bit different. But after this, most of the original sequels still with the same actor playing Hell Priest. They try to go back to more simple stories because those had a more limited budget. I think I still have some VHSs because they were directed to video.
Hmm,
We could probably go look for those.
nice. We'll have to use the projector this time.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to go too much into detail. I don't feel like there's much more that I could say about the movie. I think we ended up making all sorts of analysis as we kind of went.
Yeah, I think we talked about, again, it's very simple. It's weird because there is much to talk about, but there's also not much to talk about. I don't know.
Like,
It's just really well executed, in my opinion. I mean, okay, there are some things I could talk about. I guess more negative aspects of it. Critique. We could go in that direction. I don't know if you have any critiques you'd like to
I mean,
make.
the movie was cheap as all hell. There isn't much that I can say to it. With the money they had, doing what they did,
Yeah,
it was good for the age that came out for the 80s, late 80s. There
true.
pretty good costuming,
Hmm.
pretty good lighting. The scenes, like there's nothing that's very hard to read. I think Clive Barker for his first movie, I'm sure that production helped a lot, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, right. So when you think through the lens of, it was kind of a low budget thing.
I think it was
Uh,
like $1 million at the time.
yeah, so you can see that they really were doing everything they could, like the best they could with what they had. And I miss that. I miss when movies were like that. Because I think when you limit yourself, that's when true creativity flourishes, to
Hmm.
find the limits of the
Yeah, agreed.
of what you can do. And that's what they did, and I congratulate them for it. Um, I do have some negative points, more negative points
Go
that
on.
I would like to bring. I know this might be a bit subjective, but I think it is a bit, there are some things in the writing that are a little
Oh yeah, right.
less good, let's say
Yeah.
like that.
Well, no, I'll
Because,
let you.
yeah, there's some dialogue that is a bit, seems a bit out of place. Especially in the beginning, with the kind of exposition that some characters do. For example, I think the worst example is when Frank and Julie are talking, like the first time that we see them talking in the present, like when he's been brought back by the blood of Larry. It's like the way he just exposition dumps the whole, like, oh, it was Larry's blood brought me back and I need more. Like, it feels very artificial. I don't know. It's just, I feel like that could have been established in a far better and more plausible way.
I can agree. I can agree to that.
It's a matter of just execution here.
But
It's
I'll
like
be completely honest, my rose tinted goggles are a bit too tight with this movie. I don't
I
even pay attention to dialogue like that anymore. It's one of those for
hmm
me. But yeah, even he as a writer, probably his first time writing a screenplay. I don't know how different
I
it
mean, it's not
is.
that it's that different. I just think it's, in a movie, the show don't tell rule is a lot more pronounced, or should be, because it's a lot more noticeable when you are
Mm-hmm.
narrating something versus showing something with establishing shots and all that. In a book, you can kind of get away with more telling, but even then, it's like you can always find, like, I in my opinion, characters saying something should be the last resort for establishing things. Like, it really has to be stuff that only that character can say at that point, and there's no other way for you to get that information across to the reader. Because I think most times you can get stuff across in other ways, and setting, just like context, just other like things you can pick out, details here and there. Of course, when something is very important, it's nice that, you know, characters sometimes like acknowledge things. But here, it was a bit, it felt a little sloppy. It's just like there's nothing. Maybe there was no other way because I can't even think of a way to establish this stuff without him just saying that, because it's so out there. I guess that's why that is like that. It's just, it's so, the
And the movie
concept is
kind of
so
also
weird.
starts in the middle of it.
Yeah, the concept is so wild that it's pretty hard to establish this without dialogue. It's just, yeah, that's the thing. It's not that bad.
Yeah, we've had worse.
Yeah, we've had much worse. This is just like a little stumble, but it doesn't ruin the movie, and not at all.
Right,
It's pretty
so
great overall.
that being said, just lay it on me. What did you think of it?
Okay. Oh, you want me to do the rating
Yeah,
already?
yeah, go on.
Okay. I will give Hellraiser. Oh no, you're gonna hate me for this. 7 pins out of 10 heads.
I don't know what I like less. The fact that you actually ended up saying that, or the score that you gave it. But all right, I disagree.
we will
I'm going to
we will
give it a
settle
little
this.
bit more.
Okay.
I'm sitting on a 9 hearts out of 10 floorboards.
Nice.
Because it's one of my personal favorites.
No, it is really good. I can agree.
All right. That being said, candles are out, the circles have been erased, and we will let silence reign again. The Grymm Mansion is closing its gates. Have a horrible night, and until we meet again.